So I think it depends on the person, of course. My facility that I work with is Valley Oaks Health. We don't currently have an inpatient or a residential treatment facility that we work with, but there are some in the area. And so if it's somebody who's at a risk of withdrawal or just a high risk in general, using every day, those kinds of things, we would refer them to there's, I believe, 2 in the area, Sycamore Springs, which has an inpatient, and then Meridian Health, which is at Riverbend Hospital. That's typically where we would refer somebody to get them sort of that kickstart on their sobriety that they need. And then our facility offers several different services. We have an IOP program, so once people are kind of beginning to get their recovery, we can support them in that. We also have relapse prevention programs and a multiple pathways to recovery group that meets, I believe, once a week at our facility. So we have those, and then we also have individual services, individual therapy, support groups, things like that.
As a member of peer supports, which is really what our quick response team is, we get referrals in from either a hotline, we get a list from the police department of people who have overdosed or experienced something around law enforcement with opioid use disorder and either went to the ER and did nothing else or didn't go to the ER at all. And then we also go into the jails and corrections facilities. And the way that we do, we have an EMT who's going to do a basic health check, make sure that everything is okay. If we're going to visit them at their home, which we oftentimes do, they'll look around, assess the surroundings, make sure that everything is safe there. And then peer supports are designed to be completely different than anything I think that I've seen in the past 12 years in recovery. And that is that we don't direct people to do things. We offer a menu of options and say, which one of these would you like to choose? So it's very collaborative with the entire community. We don't push anything. Whether you're talking recovery mutual aid, we don't push religious recovery, we don't push 12-step recovery, we don't push Buddhist-based recovery, but if somebody indicates that that's something that they'd like to explore, then we're going to walk alongside them and help them explore that. Same thing with medication-assisted recovery, inpatient, outpatient, mental health services.
We've had some limited experience with folks in other capacities going out, and we're trying to build up a better network. There's this whole idea of the no wrong door policy, that if someone shows up to some place and they might not be able to provide the services because they're full, or they might be providing services different than the person is looking for, trying to build up this network of being able to refer people to these other organizations.
Our organization is one that deals with advocacy. We're out there working and convening partners, community stakeholders, bringing them together with legislators to bring needed dollars into the community, but very much to ensure that community members are included in the conversations that deal with it.
From a policy perspective, there are more resources now more than ever to address the addictions issue, to get people into treatment. Medicaid resources have now been earmarked. And so there are more treatment slots that are available, but from my perspective, the law enforcement issue is not complementing that. And so where treatment is available as an alternative to incarceration, not everybody, it's not an even playing field, so we find that more minorities get jail time, and then blacks and whites get the treatment option, and minorities get jail time. We just need to do a more comprehensive job at getting those resources and that availability to everyone.
Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of people, their introduction to treatment is in jail, if the jail even offers it. So, luckily, some of the ones around here do. They have pretty robust treatment programs. Porter County Jail, in particular.
Really, there are two avenues. One, there's forced recovery through being arrested, going through the justice system, and then being forced to sit in a cell and face your demons and go through a detox. Others that have the fortune of going to a rehab facility and truly wanting the help, that's another avenue. So I think there are two completely different avenues, but ultimately it's up to the individual or that person whether they want to change their life or not.
For me, it was going to the rooms and 12-step program. as I said, I was beaten. And after my stay, my 28 days, it was, you're out there and you're told, if you do these things, you have a chance. If you don't, you're probably going to go back and use. And so I went to the rooms and I talked to people there and did what they told me to do and just basically followed the program, the 12 steps, took the 12 steps, went to meetings, got a sponsor, did everything that they told me to do, and I guess it worked because it's 34 years in recovery at this point.
A lot of them are referred from the courts, which I think has a benefit. Some of them do come in only because they're told to, and then they come into these rooms and they do hear something after a while, or they can relate in some way, and then their road to recovery will begin, and then they want to be there. There's also people like me who have come into recovery on my own and seeking help.
Most people are court ordered. I have a few that have come on their own out of sheer desperation that just want help. But most people are definitely from the courts. And other than, if necessary, if they have what we call co-occurring disorders, if they have mental health issues such as anxiety, depression, whatever it may be, that's a whole spectrum in itself. We obviously refer them for psychiatric treatment. No matter what it is, it's across the board. But the biggest thing that we do is refer them to a 12-step fellowship. A lot of requirements in our program and for clients are to go to meetings at least once a week and to get involved in a 12-step fellowship.
We're just those first two, detox and res, and then we usually, if they don't have to go back to work or if they don't have to go back to regular life, we want them to stay engaged in treatment as long as possible. But once they get to that 30 days with us, the plan is not for them just to go back to everything and be back into the same craziness that maybe brought them there. But we want to make sure that they're connected with a counselor, a IOP, a NA or AA meeting in the area. So just kind of really connecting all of those resources is so important and crucial in somebody's recovery, because we don't want them, as much as we would like helping them at our facility, we don't want to see them back, because that means that, they've unfortunately have to be back for more treatment. We want them to be out there. We want to see them living happy and healthy lives.
In our situation with our retirement community, we of course have a care plan meeting weekly, multidisciplinary, and we talk about things that we might be seeing with our residents, and we would address it with them first, of course, because they are in an independent living situation. We do have nursing on site that can do education. We also have a wonderful handout that came from QSource at the state level to talk about using acetaminophen and ibuprofen in a certain combination that may be as effective as, for instance, using a Norco. We do educate them about behavioral cognitive therapy, meditation, music. We have a fitness center within our retirement community, so we work on balancing activities, yoga, prayer, all of those non-pharmacological things that we can do with them.
We have connected ourselves with the Perry program, and what it is anyone, any substance. It can be alcohol, it can be heroin, it can be marijuana, it can be pills. Could come into the police station, and if you're seeking treatment, you come in and talk to any officer any time of the day. Let them know that you're there looking for treatment, that you want some help. You've got an addiction, you've got an issue, and you'd like to seek treatment. So all of our officers are trained to be able to go through a process with everybody and find out, what is your drug of choice? Are you in active detox right now? Do you need a detox facility? Because that's very different than a treatment facility. And the really cool part about this is we get people into the police station and we get them in this very short window of time when they want to make a change. And it's imperative that we're able to work with them quickly, try to help them manage or navigate the intake process once we find a facility that has a bed, and support them through that. Not make them feel like they're being judged, not make them feel like what they're doing could be wrong. The really cool part about it is it's anonymous. We don't keep any type of record or put it in our record-keeping system that other police departments have access to. If you choose to let us be able to follow up with you just to see how you're doing, we will do that. Getting people into treatment has been as fast as an hour or two, and it's taken as long as maybe 6 or 7 hours. In that instance, it was an insurance issue. But the really cool part about that is it's police assisting people. That's very non-traditional.
Unfortunately, many of the users until they're at rock bottom. They won't admit that they need help. So ultimately, a lot of them do ultimately get arrested. With the Group Police Department, we do have the Perry program where we help them get assistance if they want it. But forcing somebody into a program is going to be a failure for the program.
Drug addicts or anybody really with an addiction can come to our police department, and it's 24 hours, 365, and this is without the fear of any arrest because they're not ran through any system. They are just brought in. We do a short interview with them to see, what they used, the last time they used, any other medical conditions, and we try to assist them with finding a recovery place. Whether it's going to the hospital because they're have bad withdrawal symptoms, or getting them transportation to an area recovery center.
Two different realms to this, really. The first one is obviously an emergency 911 response, where you're going to respond to the scene of an individual and you're going to take care of them. Paramedics are going to try to diagnose the reason why the individual is either unconscious or what we call altered mental status in the field. And they're going to look for those signs and symptoms, which can usually result in the administration of Narcan to try to reverse some kind of overdose. But our primary reason for being there is actually to protect their respiratory drive and to make sure they keep breathing. Now, on the other side of things, because that's really just an acute care model, right? Get them to the hospital, get them stabilized. It really doesn't do anything to help them with their continued treatment. And that's where some new community paramedicine initiatives are coming out, where we're trying to engage with this population after that initial crisis and that initial call, to engage them and get them connected with peer support services and get them engaged in treatment. The perpetual cycle that exists before in the emergencies setting is there's an overdose, the individual goes to the emergency room, then they sign out AMA or they leave, and then there's another overdose, and that cycle just continues. Well, the individuals who are somewhat perfectly placed to interject and change that cycle, in many communities are EMS agencies. We're there. All we have to do is change our practices, and that's what we've started to do, where we're interjecting, stopping that cycle, and reaching out to these individuals, extending our hand, and getting them engaged with treatment facilities and other resources in our community.
In my experience, most of those patients, they're going to the hospital. Now, where they go from there, that's not in our realm. But they're going to go to the hospital because they're going to have to get checked out. The public, I think, looks at Narcan like it's new, which it's not. We've all had, especially EMS, we've had Narcan forever. But it's also not a magic cure. It's not an easy button that just fixes everything and, now you don't have drugs. Those drugs are still in those patients' bodies. And so, just like any other drug, Narcan has a half-life. And they may have enough of the drugs in their system, especially if they're habitual users, that it will outlast the Narcan and they can actually go back into overdose. So them coming with us, going to the hospital, getting checked out, sometimes, like in the case of that firefighter and that nurse, they're going to end up in ICU on a Narcan drip until everyone is 100% positive that the drug is completely gone from their system.
When you're trying to get somebody off as family, if they're, uncooperative, it's the best to let them go to jail, Our sheriff's department has just a phenomenal program with the people that are in there for education, trying to get them treatment and help. We have a chaplain that's just fantastic that also tries to help them after they get out, try to get them employment, try to get them into a church, surround them with good people. I think the biggest part is getting that person out of their element, out of that group of friends or people they use with, girlfriend, boyfriend, and also starting back up the things they used to love, whether it's animals, hobbies, sports. I think once you get them off the drugs, then you have a chance to rekindle that passion that they once had. We actually have a flyer that we hand out if people are interested in treatment, and then also we have Porter Stark that comes into our facility and offering treatment, and then we have, I believe, 2 teachers in the jail still that teach recovery and Alcohol Anonymous, and we also have church leaders that come in a few times a week and preach and have Bible studies, all things that I think, are very, very important for trying to help a person stop that bad habit. You brought up, are you seeing people that you've dealt with before? Yeah, I see a lot of people I've dealt with before, and I think one of the biggest things when I see those people is, to remember not to judge them, and don't let them feel like you're judging them if you are, because they're just struggling with something. We all struggle with things, and you want them to do better. Whatever crime it is, whatever addiction it is, we all want to do better. I think that's important.
If it's a recent overdose, the subject would end up in the hospital because they need medical care. If it comes to a point where they have been charged and end up in the Porter County Sheriff's Office or a different facility, Porter County Jail, that at least they have programs where they can seek help, and that is Narcotics Anonymous. That way they can, while they're in the jail, they can at least go to class. I believe it's three times a week or 2 times a week, and kind of get some information about how they can get help or ways to deal with their addiction.
Well, right now in Porter County, we have a lot of different places that are doing different things. We've got places such as Porter Stark that has a methadone clinic that I think is a tremendous asset for our community. It serves far more people than what most people would actually think. You've got the Sheriff's Department up here that is using Vivitrol to help some of their inmates in there to get off their drug addiction, along with the prosecutor's office. It's all kind of intertwined. But we have all these medical assisted programs now that they are really starting to make a lot of progress, where we started to see the recidivism rate actually decline with the people going back to jail. So you have to give law enforcement and the prosecutor's office a lot of credit for everything that they have done.